Well, hello there, Nina Ward. If I could just introduce you, Nina. Nina's become not just a colleague, really a friend. Love chatting with Nina, about different patients and what's happening down in her neck of the woods. But Nina's journey, what I want to talk to her about today, is her journey into GEM and with GEM as a very busy clinician down in South Australia. So, hi, Nina. How are you today?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks so much for having me, Rob.
That's great. Always good to talk to you. So, Nina, look, can I ask what were because I know your background was very, very different. If you could maybe talk a little bit about that to the GEM approach.
Mm,
What attracted you to GEM and what were your first impressions when you almost like this opposing force to all the things that you'd ever learned before?
yeah, that's a really good question. And I was thinking about this before when we were talking about this. I I did all of the training that most of us have done around gut, all the things that we're taught at college and uni, all of the additional, I loved that whole thing of gut. I could see that gut health was so important to every single condition and every client that we're seeing. I'd done all of the training on microbiome, Jason Horelick, all of that sort of stuff, Sibo training, the whole kit and caboodle. But and I was having really good success with clients, mostly.
Mm.
But there was some where I was not having success and I wouldn't, we could improve them to a certain point, but not beyond. And I had a couple of doozies, which I can talk to you about in a minute, which was actually the clincher for me to start using GEM. So I was actually on the prowl. I was already sort of scouting the horizon for is there something else out there? I had
I
already
love
come
that,
to,
on the prowl.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'd already come to the conclusion that sort of the use of antimicrobials, I could see that there was flaws there, and
Mm.
I had these two clients in particular that honestly, I really thought my world had come crashing down. They had both come to me for Sibo, and we'd done, those incredibly complicated protocols, rotational herbs for months and months, week on, week off, really restrictive diets. I had lots of people give up gut stuff because they couldn't cope with a restrictive Sibo diet.
Mm.
But these particular clients, we resolved, and this was happening at the same time. So I had these two girls. We resolved the actual original issue, which was SIBO with both of them. They weren't getting, the symptoms. They both were alternating bowel movements, very bad skin, both of them as well.
Mm.
And good for a period of time. One girl in particular very, very quickly declined about 4 weeks after she'd sort of got to the end of maybe 4 to 6 months of treatment. And she really took a nosedive. And
Mm.
it didn't take me long to realize that what we'd done is we'd cleared the SIBO, but we'd actually created a hydrogen sulfide problem. And for anyone who's had a client with a hydrogen sulfide overgrowth, it is awful. She had the smelly burps, really bad diarrhea, very, very reactive to any high sulfur foods, which of course are really healthy foods.
Mm.
And it got so bad that she couldn't tolerate any meats at all. And so I had this client, and it was also autoimmune, which meant that there were certain foods that we were avoiding. And so I couldn't get any protein into her, and I had no idea what to do. And in the interim before that, I think what had happened is that people had already started talking about the GEM protocol, and I was like, what is this? What is this? And I was always very hungry for information about gut health. So I'd been listening to what people were saying and realized that there was a training course that I could do and learn about it. And look, I did that training course really quickly, sucked it in like a sponge, really loved the way that information was delivered. I have a very logical, scientific kind of brain and approach to things. So I really appreciated that
Well,
heavy science stuff.
you would love the way
Yeah,
Dr. Christine
absolutely.
Horton
Yeah.
thinks and
Yeah.
puts information together.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
But the other
Sequential,
thing
standard,
that
yeah.
massively appealed to me is
Mm,
the heavy, heavy emphasis on food
mm,
and the fact that there was no antimicrobials,
mm,
which appealed, but also was I couldn't get my head around how it could possibly work.
mm.
And so
Well, I
I
guess,
had
yeah, sorry, because the next thing was, I'll let you go back to this, but yeah, I mean, it took you a long while to transition. Was that the
it did.
stumbling block for you?
It did. So
Yeah.
so I did these girls that I was talking to you about, they actually came into my world about 4 or 5 months after I'd done my gem training. So I did the gem training, thought it was amazing, but I didn't have that personal experience of using it with clients. And so I literally couldn't get my head around how it could possibly do things like clear Sibo or correct dysbiosis without using antimicrobials, even though that's what had actually originally appealed to me.
Yeah.
And then I had these 2 girls, and I was like, what the heck? I've got nothing to lose. The one that could no longer eat meat, we'd gone down that whole path of, one of the strategies with hydrogen sulfide overgrowths is very, very high dose oregano oil. And I was prescribing to her, and there was something in my gut just saying, this is wrong. This is so wrong, because she's already got an incredibly damaged microbiome, and I've got the potential of making it even worse. And these were clients I was literally waking up in the middle of the night going, we're done, that kind of thing.
Well, it shows a wonderful heart for, what is it, first do no harm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so this no meat girl, I needed to do something really fast, and she had already been with me for a really long time, and she'd spent so much money, resolving her initial gut issue. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put her on Enduracell powder. I'm just, because I felt like I was throwing products at her, and I had been for months and months. So all I did was bring in just straight broccoli sprout powder, and it was actually remarkable. It was literally within about 10 days, things really started to turn around for her, and within a really short time, she was able to bring meats back in. Wow. And she did, she would have used broccoli sprout probably only for, I would say, 3 months, maybe a little bit longer, because we integrated it with other things.
And she didn't get any of the die-off syndrome when you brought that in?
We were very, very slow and gentle with that, building it up. But she'd already, we'd already been through all of that with treating the Sibo originally. Look, I do recall she was a little bit uncomfortable, but because we did it low and slow, and she was uncomfortable anyway. She was literally having explosive diarrhea with the hydrogen sulfide. So that.
Now, I think, if I may, because I know because of sulforafane, we have different clinicians going, sulfur, this patient is allergic to sulfur.
Yeah.
So this is really interesting. Here we go.
Yeah,
Hydrogen sulfide, problem with sulfur in foods,
and I have to be honest with you, Rob, that sort of question popped into my mind, but I was desperate. I had run out of things to do with this client, and I can remember having a conversation with her going, I've just learned about this protocol, and are you open to it? It's just broccoli. Can we just try it? And bless her, because if she hadn't agreed to and had such an amazing response, I don't know if I would have got the confidence to actually go ahead and start using the protocol. But that was
she was your little angel.
And there was this other girl in the background as well. And so I sort of came in with a blaze of fire. If it can correct hydrogen sulfide, then wow, this is pretty cool. I still didn't feel confident though. Isn't that interesting? Even with such an amazing response.
Well, I think this is really important, Nina, too, because there's a lot of clinicians out there that I think, who haven't fully taken it. Look, we've got a great following. We've got a great, even on the Facebook group, we see, so many wonderful results and clinicians who are really taking hold of this. But I think because there's such a strong voice about Sibo out there, and with the trying to micromanage the microbiome, that it is hard for a few clinicians. So I think this is really going to be very helpful for many clinicians. So you're saying you didn't feel confident
I still
even
didn't.
then.
I know.
So tell me what happened then that you started.
Well, this comes back to that science head of mine. I knew, I'd also done a lot of extra reading after that initial training, and I knew what an incredibly powerful NRF2 activator sulforafano was. So I was like, okay, I'm going to contact all of my autoimmune clients and talk to them about NRF2 activation, antioxidant effects, and anti-inflammatory effects. And so I put all of my autoimmune clients on the GEM protocol. And of course, there's such a strong connection with what's even those that I had done gut work with. There's such a powerful connection between what's happening in the gut and the flares around autoimmunity. So I guess that then gave me the confidence. I sort of immediately put about probably 14 people, I would say, something around that, straight on to the GEM protocol. And then I was monitoring. So, we were checking in, and they were coming back and saying all these things that I hadn't even considered. My skin's cleared up. My hormones are better. I haven't got PMS anymore. I actually find with immunobiotic, anyone, particularly autoimmune joint pain, or joint pain that looks like rheumatoid arthritis, but they have no diagnosis, those ones. They love immunobiotic as well because of the anti-inflammatory effects there. So that was really good. And that then helped me to build up my own little bank of evidence. And I think that's what I needed. I needed to see that people were seeing improvements. The one big thing that took me the longest to get my head around was, how can this fix Sibo? How can it do it? I could get my head around dysbiosis. How can it fix Sibo? And the autoimmune, the inflammatory stuff. And then I just dived in, and initially, I can remember when I first jumped in with Sibo using the GEM protocol, I was still doing little things on the side. Like I was still giving them a bit of garlic, because I was like, okay, I feel like I need to do something. But
fresh garlic or?
I was using garlic oil.
Okay. Yeah.
You totally don't need to. I don't do that anymore. So, what I'm doing when I approach clients, which I'm sure is what lots of other practitioners are doing too, is I'm assessing the whole pathways. So, because that's going to help me work out what else I need to blend with the GEM protocol for a more effective picture. Do they need stomach acid support? Do I need to be guiding them around slowing down their chewing? What's happening with motility? Do we need something to sort of encourage things to move through a little bit more while the GEM protocol is working? But honestly, I now use GEM.
Was that at the 6-month point that you started to play around with Sibo?
It was probably a bit later, actually.
Okay, so you were still transitioning. We're looking at the transition period. So you'd seen it work with these two patients who were in a really bad state. And then you started to work through with your autoimmune patients, and you were still poking at it with a stick a little bit.
I look back at it now and I think, God, what was I doing? Absolutely. Because now, I also used that approach where every single gut client who came to me, we would do a $400 gut test. And this is one area that I have actually been a good student, and now I follow exactly what Christine teaches, which is, do you know what, get the basics squared off, make sure they're not celiac, that kind of thing. So I get whatever I can from the GP if symptoms are applicable. And then we just start the gut protocol, the GEM protocol. And I will say to clients, there is this big test we can do. And if you want to do it, I can totally make it happen. But what I tend to do now is that if we're not seeing results at that sort of 12 to 14 week mark. If most of the things haven't resolved, maybe that's the point. And you know, I've never done one.
Is that right?
Never done a test.
So there hasn't been the need to. No. Okay.
I honestly use the GEM protocol with about 95% of my clients. So everybody goes on the GEM protocol.
And it's interesting, Nina, that you mentioned about the tests and not needing to do those anymore. And I was talking to a clinician just earlier today, and she showed me this test from Genova, and it was incredibly extensive. How much of it was actually quantitative, I don't know, but and insanely confusing, really. You know, it really was. And then as we look further and further into it, I had to say, look, this is all so far downstream.
Yeah.
And you know what we're trying to do is change what's happening upstream. She said, of course,
yeah.
because she understands the principles and realized, well, we can't micromanage what's going on here, because what we're seeing is a result of what's happening further upstream, which is, you know, huge amounts of inflammation, unresolved oxidative stress, toxins, you know, that aren't being dealt with effectively, energy production that's way down. So if we can fix all those, then the body will actually sort out all that, you know, the landscape that we're looking at in such detail and trying to change. So was that how you felt with the testing?
I love the term that you're using, micromanaging. And that's, you know, I know as a practitioner, I would sometimes get those reports back and I'd be looking at the balance of microbes and my head would literally be spinning, you know, which is the herb that I use for that microbe, and which prebiotic should I be using to lift that one? And totally micromanaging. And I think what's happened with gut health for practitioners is we've way overcomplicated things. You know, it doesn't need to be like that. And you know, I see this every day. I love working with this protocol so much, because every time I'm checking in with clients, they're telling me about all of these improvements, not just gut-based improvements. And that's what they love, you know, all of these other things that are improving for them: brain fog and hormone balance, PMS, inflammation, that sort of stuff as well. So it's you know, people love it.
So given that, what does your clinic look like now? How do you feel? You know, what's your life like now?
Yeah. So look, again, you know, I guess I'm human. We all love success. And what I mean by success is that I get to see my clients improve using the GEM protocol. And so that's where I've put a lot of my focus and effort. You know, a lot of people who come to me, probably 70-75% of my business is gut health. And, you know, people tell people, you know, I've been doing this amazing protocol and it's been great. And I love it because it's easy and it gets results. And that's, from a practitioner perspective, the busier you get, you've got to have something that you can reliably use and keep rotating. It's not cookie cutter, because you're still personalizing everything for the individual in front of you, but you've always got this potential of die-off. So you've got the information about die-off. So if you're dealing with the same things all of the time, you know, I guess this is why people niche, isn't it? Is that you can build up your repertoire of things that you provide to clients, and it becomes incredibly quick. So from a practitioner perspective, it's really easy and really rewarding to work with, particularly when you get clients coming back week after week saying, oh my God, look how much better I am.
Wonderful. So, and Nina, in relation to that, like, it's obviously simplified things for you, because you're not looking at those reports and going, oh, I need to give this antimicrobial, or what again was that prebiotic that I need for this one?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, becomes so confusing, and it sort of gets away from the holistic value of food. You know, that within a well-balanced diet, we're going to get all the combinations that we need. So, you know, so that's obviously helping your patients too. And how did they, how do they feel now about when you talk to them about diet, and it's more a diet of inclusion,
Yeah.
and that's what you're going towards, rather than
Yeah.
trying to work out the things that they can't eat,
Yeah.
you know?
That's such a great question. And I do actually have quite a few clients who end up coming to me who have already tried another gut approach. So they're coming to me saying, I've done low FODMAPs, or I'm doing low FODMAPs. And then when I talk about inclusivity, they're cautious. And I'm like, well, let's just keep doing what you're doing, but we're going to be expanding everything out. It's when you've got someone with really bad gut health, sometimes this whole concept of 600 grams of non-starchy vegetables a day is a little scary.
Absolutely.
So, but that whole thing of as we improve what's happening in the gut, reduce the inflammation in the lining of the digestive tract, you're not going to be as reactive to foods, and that's exciting for people. And the little infographic that you guys made up, the food infographic, people love that as well, because that then becomes a really great template for lifelong good food balance. Here's a little infographic that shows me, oh yeah, I should be eating prebiotics and I should be eating my fermented foods. And it's really handy. And it also means that as people are moving through the GEM protocol, they are actually learning about what foods they should be eating. And so they do actually pop out the other end eating much, much better.
Yes, I often talk to people about imagining, a holiday on a Greek island in one of those beautiful outdoor restaurants overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, and the table laden with all these beautiful vegetables and lovely, Greek wine, and red wine and so on, and say, well, that's where we want to go. And even with the breads and things sitting there, that they're able to tolerate, that's where we want to go. So just one final one, Nita, because I know at one time you've said to me, where you're getting, so many of your patients who are in there for gut health, but for those that don't come in for gut health, you're looking for an excuse to put them on GEM. And I guess it comes back to, Hippocrates. He said all disease begins in the gut. And well, can't say absolutely everything does, but so much does. And how did he know? He was a genius, just incredible. But so what are your feelings on that in terms of that flow-on effect?
Again, really good question. And I want to slightly change the wording of that, because it's not like people are coming in and I'm like, oh, okay, I've got to put them on GEM. It's that it makes total logical sense to put everybody on GEM. And I primarily use GFD and immunobiotic. That's my go-to, and because it's easy and people can understand. So a lot of women who are coming, even if they've got this pristine gut health, they think they've got pristine gut health, have got PMS. So that's a really easy conversation, because I've got so many clients who are like, I'd never want to stop taking broccoli sprout because I don't get any PMS when I'm doing that. And so that's a really easy conversation. And interestingly, sometimes these people who have zero gut symptoms get the worst die-off. I've actually found. Is
that right? Is that? Yes.
So other big areas, skin, anyone who's coming to me with skin issues, even if they reckon their gut health is hunky-dory, that's, and also then any kind of mood-based stuff. So anything that anything that makes you think, gosh, if we got some methylation problems here, is there, potential SNPs there that we need to consider? I don't, it's every now and then I don't use the GEM protocol and I regret it.
Is that right?
Because it'll be groundwork. It's like that groundwork stuff. Sometimes I'm putting people on the GEM protocol. I don't even talk about gut, right? I'm just talking about the other things that GEM does that's pertinent for them, whether it's hormone balancing, liver detox, whether it's inflammation, whatever. But when I don't do that, I do regret it. Even I use the food principles with pretty much all of my clients. whether they're doing gem or not.
Yes.
But I do always regret not using gem just because of that solid groundwork of, as you say, it literally all starts with the gut.
Yeah, and I think too, there's that whole principle of that, once again, the upstream, and that's and just as we're impacting those cells in the gut that will affect virtually every system, every other cell in the body because of the link with the gut immune interface and so on. But we have the same thing with the sulforaphane, the NRF2, as you I like it referred to as NRF2 instead of NRF2.
Oh, yeah.
It's a groovy way. So the
well, there you
go. But that is impacting every cell of our body and upregulating a similar group of genes that play a role in protecting the individual cells and helping them to function better. And then it's also acting upon specific genes in specific cell groups, like the gut epithelial in the lung and the genitourinary tract, with the beta defensins and so on. So it's feeding through, and it's not just through the gut, it's through this wonderful mechanism, this upstream mechanism that influences health all the way through.
Absolutely. You've just actually reminded me, I've had amazing success with women with recurrent UTIs using GEM.
Is that the IB and just the GFD that you?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Or one girl I just used in Duracell and IB, but that affect the beta defensin production within the bladder, amazing. And again, they don't ever want to give up there.
Is that right? That right?
Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. Oh, Nina, thank you. I've always appreciate catching up with you and chatting with you, and particularly you sharing these bits and pieces, with other clinicians.
No worries. Thank you.
Wonderful.